All right, welcome. For those new, welcome. For those returning back, welcome back. Appreciate your viewership. This is how the crabs got boiled. We lost twice. And so when it comes to ladder matching, there is two primary ways to lose, not including losing overall on the stage, but when it comes to points. And so this is part of ladder racing that I am not too familiar with how the point structure works. Outside of the generic, there are 10 positions and 10 points essentially on offer. And so depending on where you come across the line is how many points you earn. But I found out that sometimes you can be the stronger team, which in this case we're racing the OTR grits. Now we lost to two OTR teams back to back, and so kudos to you OTR for providing two excellent teams for us to race with. Now, the first race, which is the one we're watching right now with OTR Grit, we, started off well. You know, this was one of those races where we went out pretty easy, pretty slow. Didn't really expect a lot to happen initially. This is the Deuce France stage, and so it's a lot of rolly hills and long flats. And so didn't expect a lot to happen on this stage. We figured if we couldn't create a separation through the rolly hills, which they did an excellent job of, staying with us. Anytime one of our guys went out, they all jumped forward and got on his wheel immediately. And so we didn't want to continue those repeated attacks the whole way. So we decided to send Riz off the front. And after a while, they didn't start to chase Riz. And so we just kind of, the rest of us stayed together. You see Riz has got, 14, 15-second gap right now. And it basically continues to grow from here on out. Now we are, you know, wanting to see whether or not they're going to, pull to try and catch Riz. But they ultimately kind of let him go. And if you ever look at on the ladder league page, you can see people's power numbers, especially who you're up against. And so part of the tactics is, hey, if you got a strong guy like Riz, sometimes you just need to let him go. Sometimes you just need to let him out there. And so as we start to approach the aqueduct, we figured this would be a good opportunity to kind of push a little bit, but they kind of stay strong, stay with us. And so we didn't, again, we didn't want to purposefully bridge up to our guy. And that's kind of, team tactics 101. Not only in ladder racing, but Zwift racing, crits, real world racing. You don't want to be the person doing the work to bridge up to your guy. So a lot of the time we spend it not doing a lot of work. And so, we do take opportunities to kind of push and, see whether or not they're willing to kind of work with us to chase. You see one guy got off the front there and I ended up chasing him and ultimately catch up, with quite a bit of effort. If you look at my bar there, so he definitely made me work to catch up. And then I rolled off the front and just kind of maintained a decent pace to see, kind of where his legs were at. He was staying on my wheel, and so, our DS was like, hey, just let him pull. We got Riz up front there. If he wants to catch Riz, then let him work, and that's kind of what we do. And as we go through, the rolly hills of the macaroon roads, he ends up pushing, does some side to side stuff with steering, which my left paddle is, having an issue, so I can't steer to the left. But thank you, Pack Dynamics, for keeping me on his wheel, so I didn't have to work that hard to stay there or get let out in the wind too much. And so, as you can see, he continues to push on and kind of, keep me at a little bit of a distance. But at this point, I'm still only really, if you look at the graph, I'm staying in the grays and blues. So I'm not, I'm in my zone 2, zone 3. And as we start to approach a kilometer here, to go. I know that, it's going to be a sprint finish between me and him. And, I don't know his sprint power. I know our DS was telling us he's a pretty strong sprinter. So I did what I like to do best, which is launch from a long ways away. And the reason why I like to do that is in instances like this, if you can't hold a sprint for 700 meters, which I can't, and you'll see that, I go out as long as I can, and he matches my power numbers almost one for one, but I've got about a 1 to 2 second gap right now on him, and that gap is continuing to grow. And after a few hundred meters, you can see that he just stops. His power drops from 11 watts down to 4, and that's when I start to ease off myself. I've got about a 4 second gap on him, and I know that all I got to do at this point is just kind of stay, match his power levels, or just kind of keep pushing, and then I can coast to the finish. And so usually if you launch from far enough away, people aren't going to have the power to chase. And so that's kind of a lot of what I work on, is trying to build up that, long distance sprint. In this case being 700 meters. Even though, like I said, I didn't hold it for the entire 700, held it for probably about 500 ish, but that's still a long sprint for anybody to be able to hold, or maybe even less, maybe like 400 meters. But 400 meters is still a long sprint to hold. I end up PRing on my 15 second power, held over 1,000 for 15 seconds, which was, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how long I was able to hold that for. But then again, this race we did a lot of zone two, a lot of zone one, like, a lot of easy pace. So jumping forward to the next OTR race with the OTR swagger. Now this is a completely different race. So as you can see, we are on the downhill of the Segura climb. I ended up not recording the first part of this race, but if you look to the bottom left, you'll see all the red on the graph. That is the start. That is how we started this stage. And not because we wanted to start this stage that way, but I will defer you to Riz's channel so you can check out his video so you can see how the start actually went. And so they completely caught us by surprise, caught us with our pants down. However you want to phrase it, they launched off the line and basically went 100% to almost the start of the Segura climb. Now, that was a shock to us. And, that did exactly what it needed to do. They ended up dropping two of our guys immediately, and then just using their guys to push on the pace hard. And they kept pushing the pace hard to the point where I kept kind of falling back a little bit. And then I'd have to surge to kind of jump up and then drop back and surge, drop back and surge. And that's kind of how a lot of this stage went. Is you can see as we start to approach the Clyde kicker, I end up falling off the back, but I pushed hard to catch this group, thinking I would drop the guy that was behind me, but that did not happen. And so as we go up the Clyde, give a nice little surge just to kind of stay with the group. I wasn't planning on, attacking, and then two of our guys go off the front, two of theirs chase. And so I jump back onto that group because at this point we realized we are pushing hard enough to create a separation with their guys, and having three off the front for us meant that we could work together and really just push hard and do kind of like a time trial and just continuously, repeatedly push through each other. But as you see, they still got one guy on their team with us, which is Pole Hill. Now, Pole Hill is an absolute monster. If you look at his numbers in comparison to the rest of us, like the way the ladder site shows power numbers, it uses kind of like a spectrograph view where green numbers are low power, red numbers are high power, and yellow and orange in between are medium level. Pole Hill is basically red across the board. Like, the man's a beast. And so, we knew that if Pole Hill went off the front, initially we're like, all right, if Pole Hill goes, let him go, because there's no catching him at this, if he decides he wants to push hard. it'll be a lot of effort for us to catch him. And, you know, depending on our race positions, we could, earn enough points to still win the stage, even though, he would, cross the line first. But, he ends up, just staying with us, and we kind of, we did our best to just stay together as a group. You see, Pole Hill again launches off the front up the climb. Um, and so our guys start to pull forward, and, I get told, like, hey, keep up, basically. And so I did another surge, and this was, man, you can see my heart rate's up in the 170s, upper 170s. And while that's not my max heart rate, that is kind of like what I would consider my zone of despair. Meaning, if I get into the 170s, I can, hold that for a while, but at the same time, the effort to get my heart rate above 170, I can't sustain it for very long. And so, I end up, doing my best to kind of catch my breath through you know, through the breakaway loops here. But every time we'd go up the Bray, Pole Hill would push hard. And so he just wore us down on the Bray. And so we kept doing what we needed to do. We, ultimately didn't want to, you know, we didn't want to let him go, but at the same time, we knew that, it was going to take all three of us to work together to, to match his power, and to try and keep up. And so anytime he went out the front, especially if one of our guys was close enough to stay there, you see Ryan, kind of pushed hard off the front. Either Ryan or Riz pushed hard off the front there, to see what Pole Hill has left. And he just, with what seemed like no effort, just got right back on terms with our rider and just kept going. And so, this is how the rest of the stage went. I thought going up, as we start to come back through, we got this one round left. I thought he was gonna, really try and make us work. You see, our guy launches again, and he just jumps right back on with seemingly little effort. I'm at this point really, really hurting. My legs are hurting to try and stay on terms. And so, and surprisingly, I got, second, second fastest through that break. But, I'm doing my best to just kind of keep up at this point. And so as we loop back around, we know that we're coming, back up the backside of the castle here. I thought he was going to push hard on the backside of the castle. He ends up not pushing hard. Instead, one of our guys does, and then he just kind of pushes right through again seemingly without any issues. Now he did message us after the race, like, man, that was tough. He put a lot of effort um, to keep us working ultimately. And so, as you see, he starts pushing harder off the front there, and Ryan's doing a fantastic job keeping up. And considering, you know, Ryan's more of a diesel than a climber, he does a fantastic job keeping up with Pole Hill on this stage, and ultimately, in a way, almost dropping myself and Riz. You see, Riz is right behind me, and so I open up a gap a little bit to basically let Riz bridge off of me in order to get up to the front. But ultimately, that costs both of us quite a bit of effort, because as we start to pull forward again and hit the Segura Hill, it is, we are firing on all cylinders, doing our best, but Pole Hill just little by little starts pulling away. You see, I'm doing, upper 400s, low 500s on this 6%, 7% part of the climb, and he is just little by little pulling away. Riz at this, or Ryan at this point was like, hey, I don't think we're going to catch him. He is not only a lighter rider than we are, but also a much stronger rider than we are. And so, we do our best to just kind of stay together. I launched my draft because at this point I needed, some assistance to try and even just catch Ryan. I thought if I eased off a little bit on this part, let myself, let my legs kind of breathe a little bit, I could push harder on this climb and continue to pull and catch up to Ryan. But by the time I get to this next flat part, I am absolutely feeling it. My legs are on fire, and I'm like, I don't know how I can sustain. trying to put the effort required to catch up to even Ryan at this point. And so as I hit this last part, I give a good dig just to kind of not stall out on this climb, but just get over the top of it. And then once I get over the top, I just kind of coast to the end because man, I was hurting, absolutely hurting. A lot of red on this stage. And while I do love the Brave Breakaway stage or Breakfast Grits and Grits, the Scotland Smash, I love these Scotland courses. I feel like I'm built for them because they have short, punchy climbs with enough time in between where I can get some good rest. This time around, I was hurting. And so as I crossed the line in third place, we are, you know, we are all just talking about it on the chat, and we're like, man, that was devastatingly tough. And so getting back to the beginning conversation. So what are the two ways that you can lose in uh, a ladder race? The first way is losing by strategy. And so if you have a team that has the right strategy, has the right level riders, because in ladder racing, if there's too much of a spread between levels, and so they use a Zwift Racing app website. I'm an amethyst in the Zwift Racing site, which is I think level 5 or 6, somewhere around there. Um, yeah, level 5. And so if you have uh, if you have enough of a spread, so they do use like gemstone type of ratings. Um, So you go from amethyst, as you work your way downward, you go to platinum. Below that, below platinum is gold. And so if you have enough of a spread between those different levels, then the points change. And so myself and Riz, um, for the first race, only got half points for our positions. Even though they round up depending on where you place, we only got half points. And so ultimately, that OTR team ended up beating us because myself and Riz didn't get as many points as their guys did, since they end up doing a good job to kind of stay, keep their guys together. On this second race that we did, we essentially lost, not for the same reason. We lost because they whooped us. And so with Full Hill, crossing the line in first place, getting maximum points, even though we had three guys taking 2, 3, and 4, the rest of their team came in right after that, and ultimately they ended up earning more points than we did, and so they beat us 28-27 in terms of points. Which again, fantastic racing on their part. They really made us work. They, especially with that start, man. Go check out Riz's channel because you want to see that. You want to see that. That start was fire. So they at some point we're definitely going to get a rematch, and we're not going to let that happen again. And so hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you guys on the next race.
Hey guys, it's Miguel from that thing you just watched. Hope you enjoyed that video, whether it was topic on nutrition or racing or a combination of both. Feel free to come back. I will continue to put out videos like this and continue to showcase what you can do with smart nutritional strategies, combining that with racing, because that is what this channel is all about. And feel free to check in if you want to see more racing. Click on wherever the link's at, subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next race.